Hello, my loves. Welcome to my channel. I am Candice Tamara, and I am a trauma and mindset coach, and I help you have healthy and committed and secure, loving relationships with yourself and with others. So hit subscribe if you haven't done already, and this video is all going to be about how you may have an anxious attachment style and how it might be impacting your parenting and impacting your children. And I know that this is a bit of a tricky subject because, of course, you love your children and you would never want to do anything to impact them. And you are, I'm sure, do your absolute best at parenting. So this is in no way to call you out or to shame you. This is said with so much love. But I want you to recognize that your anxious attachment style unfortunately has some symptoms that could be impacting your relationship with your kids and the way that you parent. And, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't help you to be aware of some of those things so that you can then make the changes needed. And one thing I just want to say, a lot of times when I work with clients, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients now, actually they don't, that are anxiously attached, and actually what they don't realize is that some of their parents, a lot of the cases when working together, they've realized that actually maybe one of their parents might have had an anxious attachment style. It's not all the time, and there's lots of different ways that you can get an anxious attachment style, but I've definitely noticed that in a lot of clients that their parents might have had an anxious attachment style. And so, think about it from your perspective now that I'm saying it. Has maybe one of your parents had an anxious attachment style? So let's dive in. So I want to share with you a few ways that you could be, your attachment style could be impacting you. Bear with me just 1 second. Okay, so one of the ways that your anxious attachment style could be impacting your parenting. I'm sure I probably don't need to tell you this, but with an anxious attachment style, we have a very harsh inner critic, and we can often be very self-blaming and very critical and very judgmental of ourselves. It's painful, isn't it? I know. And this is just very normal. But unfortunately, when we have these thoughts and these criticisms and these things about ourselves, they tend to come out in our words. So our children tend to hear these things about us. We could be criticizing ourselves or blaming ourselves, and our kids can kind of pick up on those things. They might hear you do that, and they might think it's really normal. They might start to blame themselves. They might start to criticize themselves. They might, kids are very much sponges. They're just sponges, and they pick up on things subconsciously, and they hold those things as they go through adult life. So perhaps you had a parent that might have been really critical on themselves, and maybe you're really critical on yourself now, for instance. Or maybe you heard your parent say there was a thing that they didn't like about themselves, and now that's something you don't like about yourself. Think about how your kids might be perceiving that, and how they might see that to be, and they might start to do those things for themselves. They might start to be critical on themselves. They might start to blame themselves because they hear that's how you are. So you want to be careful with that, not just for them, but also for yourself. I want you to be thinking lovely, kind things about yourself. And I don't want you to be blaming yourself. That is just very much your anxious attachment style. So if anything, when you start to do the work in your anxious attachment style, changing your self-talk, changing how kindly you think about yourself and talk about yourself, not only is that going to make you feel better, but it's actually going to really help with your parenting and with your kids, and how they see you, and then how they learn their relationship to be with themselves as well. So one thing you can do there is really work on changing that for you, that voice that you have. And that comes with repetition and it comes with time, I know, but it can absolutely be done. Okay, Then my second point is around like no boundaries. As an anxious attachment style, we really struggle with setting boundaries because we desperately want to be liked and loved. And we think if we set boundaries, then people won't like us and they won't love us so much. And we've likely been taught that actually it wasn't normal or safe for us to have boundaries as children. And maybe boundaries are really selfish. I know I used to think that, and it wasn't okay. And actually that's what, first of all, we have to flip that, because boundaries are not that at all, and boundaries are a wonderful thing and people do respect boundaries, so they're actually a really good thing. But not only that, children need boundaries. They look to their caregivers to give them guidance on what their boundaries are and what their right and wrong is. So it's really important that you are able to establish boundaries with your kids, and that can be really difficult as an anxious attachment style. So it's really important that children understand what boundaries are, what the boundaries are with you. But not only that, is that it teaches them how to set boundaries so that they can then have healthy relationships in the long run, where they're able to have boundaries and they know exactly how boundaries are. Think about, for you, if you struggle with boundaries, if you struggle with the guilt of boundaries and people pleasing, that's not very fun, is it? And you want your kids to know how healthy it is to have boundaries and how okay it is to have boundaries. And you can do that by, you learning how to do that yourself and showing your kids how to do that, and showing that to them that it's really safe to do that, and they can still be loved for having boundaries, is a really wonderful thing. And not only that, for you, having boundaries with them is a really good way to stop creating codependency yourself. Codependency is anxious attachment style. And so, sometimes we might have got it if we had caregivers that had anxious attachment style, like I spoke about in the beginning. We might have got it because, you know, we had a parent that might have been codependent and they didn't have boundaries with us. So it can create codependency in our kids as well. So it's really important that you establish healthy relationships and you teach that with your kids and you show them that. Okay. Then my next one is around fears. As an anxious attachment style, we look through the lens of fear, and unfortunately, we tend to then sometimes put that fear on our children. And on top of that, it can again create codependency. It can create anxious attachment style in them, and you might likely pass those kind of fears and those beliefs on to your kids. Um, which is really natural, because if you're experiencing it, fear is really engulfing. As an anxious attachment style, if you would have had that, it's very difficult for you to manage it when you haven't done the work on it. And I understand that completely. So it's only natural that it's engulfing you. So naturally, that can be easily passed on to your kids. And you want to be careful with that, because then they will likely grow up with those kind of fears and beliefs too. And if you think about maybe some of the beliefs and fears that you have, did you maybe pick them up from your parents when you were younger? Because that is what will be happening as well. And again, there's no shame at all. It's just literally making you aware so that you can be more aware of these things and you can kind of shift them for you. Because I know that this would not be intentional. Then another way is your relationships. You know, Often as an anxious attachment style, we can entertain relationships that aren't always healthy for us. We can entertain relationships. Now, this could be romantic, yes, but also not romantic. We might have people in our lives that can be really disrespectful to us, or we are people pleasing in our relationships, or we're striving for perfection, or we don't have those boundaries, and we're not in the healthiest of situations that don't make us feel very good as well, and that is our anxious attachment style. And unfortunately, our kids look to us, they're sponges, then look to us for that role model of what relationships should be and how they should be treated, and how they're seeing how you're being treated and how you're interacting in relationships and what you're accepting, and subconsciously they will be taking that in and looking like that will be their standard, that will be what they think is normal and acceptable in their relationship dynamics as they get older as well. And they'll think it's normal to people please, they'll think it's normal to not have boundaries, they'll think it's you know, what you have to do and strive for perfection and things like that. And again, absolutely no judgment. Um, so just to be aware of those things, because, you know, a child is subconsciously picking up these things, and that subconscious beliefs and patterns will stay with them until that is reprogrammed. It's the same way that you've learned these things subconsciously, and they're staying with you now as you've got older until you reprogram them. It's the same way that they will do that too, subconsciously. We have to be careful of those things. And then my final one is around, you know, people pleasing. You know, as anxious attachment style, we are people pleasing, might as well be our middle names. And again, this can send a message to a child if they can see that and they know that. This can send a message to a child that, you know, they have to change themselves to please others, that they're not good enough, that you're not good enough, and you are. This is just your anxious attachment style, because you likely would have learned in childhood that you're not good enough and you have to please for love and to be liked by others. You will likely be sending that message to your child as well, not because you're not liking and loving them. I'm not suggesting that in any way, but they're just seeing that from you, and they might pick up on those things subconsciously, because children are very clever and they just, you know, they navigate very well, they adapt very well, and they learn from us so much. We're like sponges. That they'll be picking up from that oh my god, maybe I need to change myself to please others. And that's just how it is, because that's how my parents did it. Again, they're not consciously sitting there thinking that. It's all subconscious, it's all trauma responses. So we have to be really careful of that. But on top of that, you know, if they're not seeing that you put yourself first and that you prioritize yourself, your well-being, then they're likely not going to do that as well when they get older, or even as children. They're going to likely, you know, look for that validation from other people as well, and put other people first. And I know you wouldn't want that. So they're just, you know, they're some of the ways that people pleasing could be passed on to your children. And anxious attachment style, some of the main things around anxious attachment style that could be passed on to your children. So I hope that is helpful and just helps you to have some awareness. Again, please, 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 please be kind to yourself. I know this is not intentional. This is just your anxious attachment style. It's not you. But I hope it's been helpful for you to see maybe how this could be happening, and maybe see the ways that you could change that. Your next step would be to watch my free masterclass, Stop Sabotaging Relationships with Anxiety, because that will help you go a little bit deeper into this. And I will leave a link for you to do that. And that will be a great next step in your journey. So thank you, and I will see you again soon.